also an apparent deadlock in the reconciliation discussions in the PDP amid reports of a widening crisis with a key member of the party, Nyesom Wike, said to be holding meetings with presidential candidates from other rival parties. So how riven is the PDP as a result? Well, we heard defensive talk from the party's former spokesman and current member of its National Executive Committee, Kola Olabundiyan. We'll see how our analysts react to that. Also, growing hunger in Africa, the worst food security crisis in 70 years. But is all that reversible if Africans take charge of their own food security? We spoke to the agriculturalist and food breeder, Dr. Stella Iwagu, who seems to think so. Well, with me for the rest of the program to offer their perspectives on those talking points of the day and more, I'm joined now by the political affairs commentator, Arise News analyst and lecturer at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, and by Arise News analyst and former chairman of the editorial board of Daily Trust newspaper, Mahmood Jega. Thank you very much indeed for coming in, and I will say welcome back, Mahmood. You've been away for a while. Always nice to see you. What do you make of all this talk of Nyesom Wike and divisions within the PDP?
Well, Governor Wike has really unsettled PDP, to put it mildly. You know, he has been sending all kinds of messages, from commissioner of projects by APC stalwarts to holding meetings lately, allegedly, with the APC presidential candidate. So it has really unsettled the PDP leadership, in particular the presidential candidate. I think it must have slowed down their preparations for the campaign, and because every day these stories are all over the papers about a rift. We wouldn't know what his ultimate objective is, but it does look like PDP or the presidential candidate has paid a high price for not picking him as the running mate, and they are still paying the price. Maybe they may have regretted it by now. I don't know, because he has caused more trouble than anyone anticipated. Yes, he's a very dangerous man in politics.
You see, the thing is, it's a few words, but you've made the point most succinctly. Professor Abiodun, what do you reckon then?
Well, I think it's a crisis that started, the crisis began after their primary like a sore, you know, and that's torn now. And tetanus has now set into that sore. So it's becoming much more difficult to heal it. You know, and of course, you can look at it from two angles. First, from the angle of the difference between the presidential candidate and Wike, one. And now the other aspect that is emerging, that is snowballing, is within PDP, those who are disagreeing with PDP in the River State. You know, we have Senator Lee Mieba and we have Secondus. They are also cashing in on the fact that Wike dealt with them directly or indirectly at some point to now say, yes, they want to rally around their candidate, you know, the PDP. That is, so you could see that the crisis is expanding. My feeling is that it's not going to be very surprisingly, because I used to credit politicians for their ability to resolve crisis. But this one is appearing intractable, and Wike is appearing to me like somebody who is not going to be reconcilable in the circumstance. And of course, it's giving me the impression of what we say in local parlance as somebody with no send, you know. So as it were, he wouldn't really care. I'm not sure he's also looking at the future. You know, he just doesn't just care. Yes, he's been sort of maltreated in the primary and in the choice of the vice presidential candidate, like Mahmood alluded to. He has accepted it, but I think he has this feeling that, now let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to go for broke, you know, to make my point. And I don't care what's going to I don't care about the aftermath, the consequences, whether or not I have a political future or not. I don't care. That's the picture I see playing out. And I don't also want to believe in, you know, spokespersons trying to whitewash it, you know, trying to say that there's that the crack is insignificant. It's a very significant crack if you do not have a wiki. And don't forget, this man is also very influential. How he's able to get colleagues, governors, peers,
around,
you know, coming around him is also very, very surprising.
Absolutely.
You know? And these are very influential figures, you know, that they have good standing. You know, they can determine the flow of the election. And I don't know what more tactics or strategy that Atiku can, former Vice President Atiku can deploy in the circumstance to assuage him, but the damage is already done, and to completely resolve it will be a hard nut to crack, Charles.
I'm talking about, Mahmood Jega, what Atiku Abubakar can deploy to try and salvage the situation. I mean, you heard Kola Olabondino there talking about a meeting between the two expected within the next day or two. Do you hold out much hope that they could broker peace?
There's been this talk about meetings, but it's not just the fact of holding a meeting, although it has symbolic value, but it is the concrete things that you say in the meetings. Now, from what we are hearing or reading in the papers about the demands of some of the people around Wike, they seem now to have zeroed their demand that the party chairman, Dr. Yoshua Ayu, should resign or should be replaced, and they brought all kinds of reasons. Now, quite possibly, as Professor Abiodun said, maybe they are not really after reconciliation, because that looks like a very tall demand.
It's a big demand.
It's a big demand. A man was elected at a convention, and he has also said, not too directly, that you wait. If you are talking about the president and the party chairman are both from the north, let's wait until after the election and see if our candidate is elected the president. That is the time when I will resign, so that a party chairman will be chosen. I think he has said something like that, or some people have said on his behalf. But to insist that he must resign now, possibly because they realize that that will be very difficult to achieve, and they are throwing it in so as to make reconciliation virtually impossible. Because it will be difficult even for the presidential candidate to ask the party chairman to resign as part of the reconciliation process. It's a very big
because he could simply refuse, couldn't he?
Yeah.
That would make things even worse. But I mean, how do you think all this is playing out in the eyes of the electorate? I mean, obviously we're going into a campaign season, then we've got elections coming up, 2023. The PDP very keen to be competitive in those elections.
Well, I think the Nigerian electorate, or maybe the electorate generally, are actually very patient. They are very malleable. They can be very understanding, and they are very hopeful that the politicians will put their hearts together. Usually politicians often have they have their ways of reining in, on the electorate, such that whichever position they take, the electorates or the voters will just to their lines, and I see that happening as well. Apart from the electorate, even the elites, the non-voting elite, we're just expecting them to put their hearts together, because what is more significant is actually statecraft. It's actually governance, because if you keep bickering at this moment, what are the chances that by the time you get into power, you'll be able to put your hearts together, settle down and provide good governance for the people, which is the ultimate, really. That's the ultimate goal of trying to acquire power, really. And of course, when there's too much infighting, that means it's going to be endless. Now we are seeing this disagreement going on in PD. I'm beginning to wonder what will happen. Peradventure, Vice President Atiku Abubakar even wins. With what has been happening now, is it possible for Governor Wike, for instance, to serve in his cabinet? Given the kind of discord, the kind of crisis of confidence that has been generated in the minds of the two, just in case it happens. And that's why there should be an end to crisis. Everything should have an end, really. If you are disagreeing one way or the other, resolve it as quickly as possible, so that, like you saw, if you do not treat it on time, other things will come in. And in this case, I'm saying that tetanus has come in. It should have been, if not nipped in the bud. Yes, we know it couldn't have been nipped in the bud. The after effect of a convention usually can happen. But of course, reconciliation should have happened immediately after, so that it will not fester for as long as it has done now, Charles.
Yes, but it's such a glaring hurt, though, isn't it? I mean, it's very difficult to see how they can actually patch it up.
It's very difficult. It is terrible because, from the PDP point of view, they are the main opposition party. And when you are the opposition party, it's like, you have an uphill electoral battle.
Absolutely.
Ahead of you. The opponents, the main opponent, the APC, they have got the federal government, they have got so many ministers and senators, and they have got 22 or 23 governors, much more than you have. And governors are a big electoral asset in Nigerian politics. So as PDP, you have fewer of them, and at least 2 or 3 of them are in open rebellion. And really it makes the task very, very difficult, apart from the message that you are sending to the electorate that you guys cannot be trusted.
Absolutely.
If at this stage you are just busy quarreling every day. How they can resolve it, honestly, nobody
that's
seems
something
to know.
we'll have to watch and see.
Yeah.
But in contrast to the PDP, how do you see the APC, which is the other party, in terms of size, it's about the same as the PDP?
Oh yeah, they are the two major parties we have. Of course, if LFP has come up to challenge them, Labour Party.
Yeah,
that is.
But I mean, in terms of just comparing the two, in terms of the
Cohesion,
discord within the PDP as opposed to the APC.
I think the major crisis the APC has now, which seems to be dying down, is the Muslim,
yes,
and the controversy around the Muslim ticket, which is thawing now. You know, there's less ululation around that now. We are moving into discourses around issues, you know, around what the promise they have, how well they can deliver on those promises. And APC is slightly moving ahead, constituting, of course, they've already considered their own presidential campaign council, which PDP is yet to do, maybe because of the crisis that is still festering. And of course, APC has also moved on. They have their spokesmen already in place, you know, and of course we are seeing them, some of them doing very good jobs entertaining us, but we are still waiting for the PDP variant. The LP variant is also still being constituted, as the case could be. So by the time all these things are coming into place, I think we'll have a direction. And that's why people like observers like you and I will probably continue to be hopeful that the PDP will resolve its crisis as quickly as possible, so that we can have a robust, vibrant pre-election election time and a quality election at the end of the day, so that people will be voting not because somebody is a good fighter or this one is a poorer fighter, you know, but that they hold the promise, you know, that they can deliver on their promises and take Nigeria to the next pedestal of good governance and, you know, a better country. As
Absolutely.
yeah.
I could have said it better myself. And just, we've got a couple of minutes left, Mahmood Jega. We had Dr. Stella Iwagu, the agriculturalist, here on the back of the report by the WHO saying that Africa, including Nigeria, but mostly the Horn of Africa, is going through its worst food crisis in 70 years. She was talking about the way that it can be handled if more Nigerians went into agriculture and so on, but she was also talking about the challenges that they face, which one of them is insecurity. What do you make of what she was saying?
It's a terrible problem we have right now because of the drought we had in East Africa and in the Horn of Africa, and then also on the other hand we had a lot of flooding in some other places.
So weather patterns.
The weather
also.
pattern. Yeah. Now that one is an international problem. The climate change is causing droughts in some places and too much water, like in Pakistan we have seen, and in other places. Now that's an international problem that all of us have to get together. Now what Dr. Stella said, absolutely brilliant submission, and that should have been the way to go in our agriculture in a concerted manner. Of course, it's not something you can do now that you are facing a food crisis, or between now and next year. It is something to resolve. And this is an old issue. There was this debate as far back as 1980, what to do about Nigerian agriculture. Should we leave it in the hands of peasant farmers, or what should we do? And the way she's going is really the way that we hope millions of farmers will go in the future. But that is for the future, honestly. For now, we have to address the problem of food scarcity.
And on that note, I want to say thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. Mahmood Jega and Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.